Hey there, beautiful people. It's Dina bringing another daily dose. Are you the type of person that is motivated by reward, or are you motivated by discomfort? So let me explain that to you a little bit. I had a mentor one time that explained it like sometimes we are carrot people and sometimes we are stick people. So the carrot people were like a rabbit that was in a race and it was running and it had a carrot as the prize. So there was like a carrot on a stick and it was running and running and running to get to the prize. And the stick person had to be kind of hit with the stick in order to move. I remember we had a horse like that. We grew up on a farm, and actually it was my brother's horse, and she wouldn't move at all. Like if you would have hit my horse with a stick, it would have went flying, but his horse just kind of sat there like taking a nap. So he had to really hit it or kick it to get it to move. So that does kind of explain people sometimes. If you have kids and you have more than one kid, I have 5 kids and all of them are different. Some of them are very motivated by reward. Some of them, you got to kind of push them a little bit more and get them to do something. I think my oldest son is definitely motivated by reward. He's the one that's like the first one to sign up. Like, I'll do it. He'll do anything, even for not a reward. But I'm saying he's definitely driven by reward. And then there's, some of my kids are not as ambitious and maybe they need a little bit more of a pushing to get something going. My youngest daughter, Gracie, that I share all the time on this channel, she is definitely reward driven. She is not driven by the fear of punishment. She just doesn't move that way. So sometimes it depends on the situation. For me, sometimes I am motivated by a reward. Sometimes it does take discipline for me to actually get moving. So the stick represents discipline and the carrot represents a reward of some kind that we're getting. So if you think about in parenting, even in the animal kingdom, let's say a mother bird has to eventually kick the little bird out of the nest. So she'll make it really uncomfortable for that bird to want to stay in the nest. A lot of times we do that with our own kids. If they're adults and they're like still hanging out at our house, you don't want to make it super comfortable for them because then there's really no reason for them to actually branch out and figure out life on their own. We do everything we can to raise them, but then at some point they're going to have to go out on their own. And so God will do the same thing with us. Sometimes we're motivated by reward. We know that there's a promise coming and we know that God, He's promised us something. And if we do this certain thing, then we'll be rewarded for that. Now, I don't believe that God is like, if you do this, then I'll reward you. I think He rewards you, but there is conditions to that, as I've shared on other videos. There are certain things that He asks us to do first. What usually ends up happening is He'll delay it. We're the ones that actually delay it. God doesn't actually work on a delay. He works on His perfect timing. But a lot of times our disobedience will delay it. But He doesn't punish us because we didn't do what He asked us to do. I think that God is very gentle with us and He'll continue to keep pushing and pursuing. But that doesn't mean it's without discipline. So a good parent will discipline their child. If you're a parent that has a child that has, is having a lot of trouble in their behavior, is it possible that they haven't been given the discipline that is needed to get them to move forward? Or again, maybe there's somebody that is driven by reward. I don't know what that is. But I know God is a loving God. God's ways are perfect. They're higher than our ways. God does discipline. And I looked that up in scripture today. And there's many scriptures that talk about how God disciplines those that He loves. One of them is in Proverbs 3:11-12. And I actually liked it in the Passion Translation. It says, "My child, when the Lord speaks to you, never take His word lightly and never be upset when He corrects you. For the Father's discipline comes only from His passion, love, and pleasure for you. Even when it seems like His correction is harsh, it's still better than any father on earth gives to his child." So it refers to God's discipline as correction and His passionate love for us. It's not because He's mad at us. God never disciplines because He's mad. Now, I think we discipline because we're mad, because we are human and we act out of our flesh. But God never disciplines out of anger. He only disciplines out of His love for us. And because He's also trying to grow us spiritually and physically and mentally, all of that. So if you find yourself in a situation where it seems like there's a lot of trouble and trials and everything going on, I've shared a lot about that lately. Sometimes things will come back up again. A couple of days ago, I recorded a video about how I was just angry with God. I don't know why. I was just really upset with Him because I prayed for things for a long time and nothing has changed in certain areas of my life, or I'm still struggling with the same things. And sometimes you got to have a real authentic conversation with God. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being mad at God. I think what's He's more concerned about is, are you sinning in that anger? So I wasn't sinning in the anger, but I was definitely angry at God. But for me to hold that in would have probably been more harmful than worrying about whether God was going to get upset with me. I think it's the same thing with our kids. I think I would rather have one of my kids come to me if they were angry with me and yell at me because of something that I did to them than for them to hold it in and resent me for that. And then later on down the road, that become a bitter root. So sometimes you do have to have an authentic conversation with your kids. And we've, opened up the door for our kids to be able to have any kind of conversation. It's not always pleasant. Sometimes they have to say stuff that I didn't like to hear. And then there always needs to be an apology after that. But in this situation that I was talking about with myself where I was angry with God, I was like, what is going on? And there's been a lot of that lately. And then it really dawned on me this morning, maybe that what's going on is less of a warfare, but more of the fact that God might be disciplining. Maybe he's trying to make things uncomfortable so that I will move. Maybe I've been looking for the reward and he's saying, no, I need you to do this before I do that. You need to do this thing. So he's using the stick instead of the carrot. And I think sometimes we can be motivated by both. A lot of times, honestly, as human beings, I think we're stick people. I think it takes pain and discomfort for us to move. Sometimes we get so complacent in our situations and we actually can get to a place where I call it comfortably numb. It's not like really, really bad. It's tolerable. It's not where you want it to be, but it's something that you can accept. But that's not God's best for you. So we just kind of get complacent in that. And sometimes it takes something even more difficult for you to actually move. Let's say you're in a relationship with somebody and you just kind of gotten comfortable with each other and nothing's really amazing. Nothing's really super bad either, but it's not really thriving. It could be a marriage. It could be a relationship with your child. It could even be a boss. A lot of times this happens at work. We're very unsatisfied at work, but it's not so bad that it makes us leave and go find another job. Sometimes, though, things have to get worse before it gets better. Sometimes it takes the pain of something to get us to move. Sometimes it takes, that little rough edges for you to finally say, what is going on with that? Honestly, sometimes it takes a sickness in our lives for us to go to the doctor. So many times we're just ignoring something that could potentially be more dangerous, but it takes something where there's a real serious situation before we get it fixed. We do that. Like, think about that with your house. A lot of times it takes a leaking roof before you fix the roof before it actually got to that point. So the same thing goes on in our life. God knows what's going on. And so if things start to feel like they're getting a little bit rough again, or like you're still walking through the same things, or you're starting to get agitated, it's possible that it's not the enemy that's attacking you, that God is actually the one that's trying to push you out of the nest. Maybe he actually is using discipline or correction to get you to move forward because you're not motivated by the reward. You've gotten complacent. Maybe you're comfortably numb in your situation. Maybe you're just expecting him to fix it for you and he's asking you and telling you that he needs you to do something to show up in that situation. So anyway, take the time to just evaluate your life. I always say the number one important thing in transformation is self-awareness. If you don't know what's going on behind the scenes or underneath the surface, how are you going to know how to fix it? How are you going to know how to move forward? You have to really acknowledge what's going on. So when you get to that place where you're self-aware, a lot of times you're like, now you're starting to pay attention to all these things that aren't working and things that are working, and you're working through all of that. And sometimes you're getting hit with a stick. Okay, it's just going to be honest with you. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes that's what takes you to move, to get off the couch, to stop whining and complaining. That was totally me. So I'm not saying anything about someone else. I'm owning up my own stuff. A lot of times I spent in complaining and murmuring about my situation, and I needed a swift kick for me to be the one that got it together. Sometimes it's just pressing in and trusting that God will reward those who diligently seek him. He does have a plan for your life. So just evaluate it. Where are you at? Are you a stick person? Are you a carrot person? Is this the season in your life where God might be using discipline to get you to move from a situation that you've gotten complacent in? Or are you in a situation where you just have to kind of wait for the rewards and you're doing all the things and you're running the race and you're doing everything he's asking you to do? I think we fall into both those categories in our life multiple times. So anyway, I hope this encourages you. It certainly encouraged me when I was starting to really understand that maybe what I'm going through, the pain that I'm going through, is, God trying to push me out of the nest. And there's some new seasons in my life that I know that he's trying to build and break through. And I've gotten complacent with some things in my life, especially when it comes to my business and all of that. It's time to step out and do more. And sometimes we get comfortable where we're at and we don't want to do something that might be hard. So anyway, Again, I hope this encourages you. And remember that he loves you, whether he's disciplining you or whether he's rewarding you. God loves you. He's never going to leave you or forsake you. He has a plan for your life and it's good. I promise you. And I love you. And I can't wait for us to be back together again. So have an awesome day. Bye.